This is your reminder that you can paint a whole bunch of tiny paintings all at once. So if you're having one of those days where you feel like painting but you don't know what to paint, or even if you don't feel like painting at all but you feel like you should paint something, why not give this a try? I wish I knew how to shuffle. Anyone? All right, let's do it. So you're going to need a sheet of paper, any size, depending on how many paintings you want. And if you're making ACEOs, those little art cards, those are typically 2.5 by 3.5, I believe. So you can measure them out to that size, or you can just eyeball these if you like. You don't really need them to be perfect. Then you're just going to tape down some painter's tape to create the little squares. And then from there, we'll just start painting in our skies. So I'm using wet into wet method and I put on way too much water. And this paper is not the best quality paper, I will say that. I got this large sheet at Michael's or Hobby Lobby, one of the two, and it was very inexpensive. So it is warping a bit, but this is kind of what I like to use when I'm playing. You know, you don't have to use high quality paper. You can use Canson XL paper. They sell large sheets. They sell like the big pads of the 12 by 18 or 11 by 15. You can even do this with 8 by 10. It really doesn't matter. And I'm using a bunch of different colors that I think make pretty skies, but that I also know blend nicely together so that we don't end up with muddy skies. So I've got some cerulean blue, cobalt blue, opera pink, quinacridone gold, oranges, and purples, but use literally whatever colors you want to use. This isn't really meant to be a super step-by-step tutorial. I more just want to show you a fun way to practice and make a bunch of little paintings at once. So again, don't worry about making yours look like mine, just experiment and see what happens. This type of painting is one of my favorite ways to slow down and self-regulate because each little square feels so approachable and there's no pressure, there's no perfect composition. We're just brain dumping onto the page and we're seeing what happens. You can do mountains, you can do flowers, deserts, whatever feels good. Or you can use these as little experimental spaces for techniques that you normally don't play with or you're afraid to use because you don't want to ruin a whole painting, like using splatter or alcohol or salt or just playing with blooms or honestly just colors, shapes, and lines. You want to layer things, experiment, and let some be messy and just let them surprise you. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing with the sky here. I'm dropping in colors and seeing how they blend together, seeing how they interact with one another, and introducing blooms. And we're just having fun with it. And once I have my skies to where I like them, then I'll move on and add in some of the grass. Or in my case, I did landscapes and oceanscapes, which I didn't plan. I didn't really plan for these to be anything. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. But yeah, that's how it ended up. I'm adding in some darker tones now. I want to add in a little bit more purple and some more blue in some of them just to change up the squares. I want them to be different. This one here it's giving me a little trouble. I don't like how they blended, so I'm going to just keep on messing with it and see what happens. So as I mixed that together, it became this very gray tone. So I'm just going to leave that alone and see what happens with it once it's dry. But that is what's so cool about this. And we're in that stage right now where we've got some damp paper, so I'm able to drop some colors in and still work with them. So I'm just blending them out and getting them to where I want them. And this is our first layer. So this could be just a one layer painting or you can do multiple layers. It's totally up to you. But I'm just going to lift up some of the paint that I want to lift and move on to adding in some grass. For the grass, I used some green gold and some sap green, and I'm just literally going straight across the page. And I'm kind of hovering my brush, you can see, just to figure out where I want to mark make. But you can just go straight across and then drop in different colors into each box. So I feel like this one has a little bit more blue in it all the way to the right, so I wanted to add a little bit more of a darker green. And then in the middle, we've got a little bit more of a warmer tone going on. So I'm dropping in some quinacridone gold, adding in some of that beautiful glowy quinacridone gold into the sky. And then here, I should have taped these off. So I should have waited for this to dry, but it's okay. So I painted in a blue horizon line and it's just too wet. It's spreading out too much. So I'm just going to fix this up. I'm going to probably hit it with the heat gun and then put some tape on it and make those lines a little bit more crisp so that we can paint in some oceans. So I had to make it dry because this paper wasn't drying. So now that it's fully dry, I am using some tape and I'm just mapping out my horizon line where I want my ocean to start. And I'm using a flat wash brush to just put on some shades of blue. You can use turquoise, whatever color you want for your ocean. And right under that line, you see I'm using a little bit of a darker blue. And if you use the flat of the brush, like the tip of it, you can go back and forth and leave out some white if you like for some highlights. But I'm just spreading that on there and then I will go in and add more detail. And over here, it's not going to match, but that's okay. So I kind of saw a vision. I saw that the blue on the bottom could have been a little river or a stream. So I'm kind of doing some negative space painting here and I'm adding in some bushes or trees and some grass. And it's kind of like a foresty scene now. So more like we're in the woods. And yeah, so I didn't expect that at all, and I expected to hate it the whole way, but I kind of like it now. I'm just dropping in some of the sand color, a little bit of burnt sienna mixed with a little yellow ochre gives you a nice sand color. I'm just spreading that on. And then where the water meets the sand, I like to use just a wet brush and you sort of do intentional back runs in there so that the sand looks like the water looks like it's receding back and it's a little bit transparent. And it's not working that great on this paper, but it blends them together nicely. So you can almost see the sand through the water, if that makes sense. To create some sort of foamy, wavy elements in my ocean, I am using Dr. P.H. Martin Bleed Proof White. And I'm just dropping that in little wavy lines while it's damp and it's kind of spreading out. And then once that is dry, we'll be able to go in and give it a little bit more of a precise edge. So that one, I did a little bit too much, but it's okay. I'm going to just lift it up and add some darker blues on top after. And then underneath where the waves would be, where they're like on the beach, receding back, I'm adding a little bit of a darker brown just to give a little shadow underneath. And you can slowly see them becoming little seascapes. And now I'm just going in again, and I don't have a plan. I didn't have a plan. I was bored and I just wanted to paint. So I picked up some brushes that I don't typically really use. And I just went in and just played with them. So I'm stippling on with this really big fat round brush. And then I picked up this dagger, this 3/8 dagger by Princeton that I totally forgot I had. And I started to use the tip of that just to create some grass textures. And it's just fun to play with these different brushes you forget you use. And this is kind of how we figure out how to use them and how we like to use them or how not to use them. So I'm just kind of using it to literally stipple almost, but using the bristles of the brush. And I'm just mixing up different shades that kind of match what I have there. So we got a little bit more of a goldy browny green here. I'm just adding blades of grass and it kind of looks like a meadow now, little meadow scenes. And this one I turned it on the edge and it was a little bit too fat there, so I'm just lifting that up and then I'll go in with some darker green and sort of split that up a bit so it doesn't look too chunky. But these are little messy meadows. And then I will add little flowers in here once I'm done. And I'm not doing any detail. I'm just going to do little dots here. So little dots of white. Again, I dropped too much on there, but it's okay. We're just going to dot it around. And this also gives me the opportunity to also add some texture in there. I'm going to use some of my wax pastels, the Caran d'Ache water-soluble wax pastels. They're really fun to play with. I am still getting used to them, but it's a good opportunity to play with them and experiment with them. So I'm just going to use those as well once I fix this big blob here. See, easy peasy, it's fixed. And you can use any colors. So here I'm using the purple or violet Caran d'Ache wax pastel, and I'm just dotting it on there just to see what it looks like. And then for this one, I want it to be a little bit more like ethereal, serene. So I'm using this really pretty blue, like a baby blue. It's so much fun. So now that I have my first layers down, I'm just going to keep on painting, adding layers, playing with different techniques. I played with some splatter on my meadows, and I'm just going to keep adding details and layers and having fun with it. So I'm just going to leave you with some music while I do that. Popping back in to explain what I'm doing here. So, when you're at the beach and the waves recede back, but they kind of leave that white line of foam. That's kind of what we're doing here. So, I'm just drawing a line out or painting a line out in a sort of irregular shape or a wave shape. And I'm just leaving that beach showing underneath. So, the sand is showing underneath, and we're adding little dots for bubbles and we're just defining the edges a little bit more, and also adding in some waves into the ocean, so into the background a little bit more. So maybe they're breaking out a little bit into the middle of the ocean. And then I will also be adding little birds into some of the landscapes. So just little V's or upside down W's, nothing technical, just little ones out in the distance. So now that everything is dry, you want to make sure it's very dry before you pull, because I did tear some of my paintings. Again, the paper is not the best, but we're just going to remove the tape, and then I'm going to use a paper cutter and I'm just going to cut out these squares. They don't have to be perfect. You can measure them to be perfect if you want the outside border to be exact. Measure them. That's totally fine. I didn't do that for these because I'm not planning on using them for anything. I just wanted to paint. So I'm just adding in my finishing little details, and then we are going to cut them up. I use this swing line paper cutter. I love it. I cut it into strips first because it won't fit because it's only 12 inches. So I had to cut it into strips first, and then I'm just cutting them out into little squares. And I'm not, again, I don't care really about the border right now. So, yeah, this is just your reminder that your paintings do not need to be perfect. You can give yourself that freedom to create and play and experiment and just have fun, make a mess. And look at all of our little paintings. They were all painted at the exact same time, but they all turned out completely different. And I love that. And honestly, the one that I thought was the ugliest ended up being one of my favorites. This one right here. I mean, it just grew on me. But yeah, so not every painting has to be precious, and this is just a great way to loosen up, just make a mess, and see what happens. I hope you give this a try, and I'll see you next time.